Hello and welcome everybody. It's Rose Smith here from AbsoluteSoulSecrets.com. Thanks so much for joining me today. I wanted to talk about the midterm elections in the US because they're coming up. And I've been getting little bits of information here and there, but nothing sort of outright definite. It's almost like people changing their minds, and it'll be one thing and then it'll be another thing. But last night I had a very rough night, and I don't know how many times I woke up, 10 times or more, I don't know. But all this imagery was happening and it was all jumbled up. But what I've noticed over the last few months, since I've been starting to focus on this in my mind, a consistent theme, and that is Nancy Pelosi is very happy. Now, obviously, she's not happy at the minute because her husband's been outrageously attacked in their home by some crazy person. But in the future, this is in the future, and it's around the time of the elections. So she is very happy, and I saw it countless times last night, and there was flowers everywhere, and it was just like she was really peaceful and had this very harmonious energy around her. Now, one thing that's super important is that the actual election takes place on the lunar eclipse, okay, which is in Taurus. And of course, a lunar eclipse is all about the feminine, isn't it? Yeah, a lot. And there's many signs here, and I've had a look at the horoscope for that day. I've also had a look at Nancy's horoscope, and there's a lot of really good influences. I'll have to do another video about that because there's so much involved in her horoscope. Yeah, it's not all plain sailing, of course, but there are some really beneficial influences. And it sort of fits because it is a lunar eclipse and she's a woman. The two kind of go together in a rough sort of way, or, you know, that's an indicator. Now, an indicator doesn't mean much by itself, but when you look at all of the indicators, and there's lots, then when you put them all together, you really get the pieces to the puzzle of you know, what's likely to happen. Now, the moon, of course, Kennedy put a man on the moon back in 1969 in July. Just forgotten the date. It might have been around the 13th, or anyway. I was sent home from school, and they sent us home in the morning, but we sat there glued to the TV, but we didn't actually get to see anything until the afternoon because there were some delays. I just think it's interesting to note that Kennedy was a Democrat, and he's sending a man to the moon. Now, he had sort of different reasons for doing that, wanting to get ahead of the Russians or whatever. But if you look at it symbolically, what it means to put, you know, send somebody to another planet, it's really integrating the energies. It's men starting to come to terms with the feminine energy. And you think about the time, 1969, I won't go into the more cruder aspects of that, you can imagine, but the 1960s was all about free love, and it was all about women becoming more equal, you know. And so he's gone ahead, and maybe he's done it unconsciously, didn't really realise that it was much to do with the feminine at all, but it was. Okay, so there's a lot in this chart and a lot coming out about women's rights as well, which I'll talk about. And anyone who doesn't respect women's rights and respect women and the rights that women have to their own body, they're going to be shown in no uncertain terms how important this is. And disrespect for women is going to be dealt with by upstairs accordingly. Okay, so I want to go to the board now. I've got some cards. I'll draw some cards, but we'll go to the board first. Okay, here's a horoscope. I'm going to talk about it in a moment, and I'm going to make that bigger so we can see what's going on. My husband mentioned, of course, when I said there's a lunar eclipse, he said, oh, the honeymoon. And I said, well, it's interesting about reproductive rights, isn't it? And so he was talking about the honeymoon, and I thought, yeah, that's got a tie in with it, and lunar eclipses is basically about something that's being covered up. Okay, so we don't get the full picture. But then gradually the uncovering happens, the revelations happen, and I think this election we can expect to see more than ever women coming out to vote, especially in light of the Roe versus Wade controversy. As I said before, denying women's rights is going to be a key point here, and people that do that could get themselves into trouble. The other point to note, of course, lunar eclipse often brings a high tide, and the ocean is all about your emotions and your subconscious. So we can expect a lot of turbulence to go on during this time on the 8th. Now, here we have the horoscope. Intense, I've written here, because that's what it's going to be. But let's choose these two cards for the midterms on the 8th of November 2022. The midterm elections. I just see the ocean when I'm saying this. And I see the curvature of the earth. It's like I'm looking at the Pacific Ocean, and it's like I'm way above the earth, and I can see the curvature of the earth. And anybody who's travelled, often travelling at 38,000, 39,000 feet, and you can see the curvature of the earth at that height. So it looks it looks like it's smooth when you're at such a height. You look down on the ocean, you see the clouds, and everything looks lovely. But that doesn't tell you what's going on in the currents underneath. And that's what I feel is a lot of currents going on that we're not going to know about until after the election. Okay, so let's have a look. The card that comes out here is a woman defending her rights, the 7 of Cups. She is actually saying, no, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. I'm going to do what I want. So she's putting her hand up and being assertive and saying no. The other way you can interpret this is she's reaching out for attainment. So this could be spiritual attainment. It could be looking for success in various areas of her life. And although it may be a bit of a struggle, imagination will get her through. She'll, use her imagination and come up with some way of sorting out the mess and getting through. Now let's pick another card as a confirmation to the midterm elections. Okay, November 8th, 2022. The chains, I see women with chains on their wrists, and the chains are dropping. And here's a woman here. The Wheel of Fortune turns. Nothing stays the same. So, there are variations on a theme here, but it is all about the femininity and the emancipation of women. Okay, I'll put that like that. That's a major arcana. It's fairly important. Okay, so, yeah, it's a lot happening here. I don't know where to start really, but we have the moon is here in Taurus in the 11th house. It's conjunct Uranus, also in Taurus, and Uranus is conjunct the North Node. Now the moon conjunct Uranus brings up unpredictable, unusual, maybe things like a revolution. It could be something really extreme. It could be something, actually that reminds me, last night I did see a fair bit of blood, so there could be some violence. So please, if you don't have to go out, probably not a good day to go out on the 8th of November if you're in the US, especially if you're in, an area where there may be crazy people running around with guns, for example. But yes, Uranus does bring up rebellion. There could be some protests on on both sides, but there's a feeling of violence with it because I did see a lot of blood last night. So, yeah, please take care of yourself. But also you see the North Node there conjunct to Uranus. And this is like karma. It's like destiny, where we're going, so it's fairly significant. It's the future, okay? And it's all happening here in the 11th house, which is groups and hopes and dreams. People's hopes and dreams are all tied up with this. Moon is also associated with the public. So we're dealing with a collective energy here. We're dealing with something really, really big. And then you'll notice here, 6-9. Oh, okay, isn't that another synchronicity? 1969, man on the moon and integration of the feminine. And here we have 6-9, which is the glyph for Cancer. And the ruler of Cancer is the moon, you see. So that's another synchronicity. And then we have Lilith here in the first house of how people approach the world, or what the midterm elections mean to the world. And you could find, because Lilith's not one to be, played with at all. She is the destructive force of the feminine. And so, yes, again, that is a bit of another sort of confirmation of the potential for violence, okay? We have Chiron in Aries up here in the 10th house. The 10th house is associated with government, and there's some sort of wounding, and it's in Aries, so it could happen quite suddenly, or it could happen with a lot of energy or boldness. Somebody lashing out against the current Biden government here. So it's sudden woundings, but also healings. There could be some sort of healing that happens there. Now, with the moon here, opposite the sun, this is like the feminine energy in opposition to the masculine energy, and they're at cross purposes. So the masculine forces are here in the 5th house, acting in a childlike way, because that's the 5th house does rule over children, okay. And here we have a large groups of people associated with the feminine energy as well. So it's going to be pretty intense. The other thing to note, that the moon is in Taurus, so there are real physical effects here, real physical manifestations. And Venus is the ruler of this eclipse. And of course, Venus was a goddess. And so that's something else about the feminine. And Venus in Taurus, she does love luxurious things, but she likes stability, and she likes structure. And so she doesn't like confrontation or any sort of violence whatsoever. So it could be quite difficult like that. Saturn's here in the 8th house of shared resources, bringing some sort of limitation or restriction to investments perhaps, or energies that you share with somebody else. And Saturn also rules government, and so there are restrictions or limitations around the current government, and how government's going to be divvied up or portrayed. Now, I've had a number of flashes, as I said before, over some months, but nothing outright until last night. Nancy Pelosi, as Speaker of the House, is very happy. And another time I saw 3 green ticks, like Nike ticks, next to her name. So that says to me she's not going anywhere. She's going to remain doing what she wants, or she gets back into power, and she's very happy, as I keep saying, despite everything that's happening at the moment. So yeah, there's a lot happening, but it looks to me like another thing I had about the Senate was I saw a lot of gravestones, maybe a dozen or more, and that means that it's the end of the political career for at least a dozen people. I feel it's not even close, the Senate. I know the polls are saying, it's neck and neck, or that the Republicans are gaining ground at the moment. They may well be. However, what I saw a few weeks ago was all these gravestones. So, I wasn't sure at that stage whether it would mean that Republicans would win the Senate with, a vastly increased majority. Now, looking at all of this and all of the pieces, I think the Democrats are going to increase their seats in the Senate. The House of Representatives is a bit more dicey, but it looks to me like Democrats will rule the day. I will do another video on Nancy Pelosi. I had a look, there's so many positive influences there. I must have a look at Kevin McCarthy, the GOP, because, to see what's happening for him. But that's what I'm calling it. I'm calling it for the Democrats. Okay, so that's it, everyone. Hope this is useful for you. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you're new, subscribe and be alive and hit that notification bell right now. Okay, I'll see you all again soon. Thanks and bye for now. Thanks so much for watching. Please visit my website, absolutesoulsecrets.com, for all things spiritual. Have a lovely day.